What's good, YouTube? This is the Only Big Green Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm back again with another deck profile. And this deck profile is Blackwings. And if you don't know what format it's for, if the title doesn't already say it, it is Edison format, or otherwise known as March 2010 format. The good thing about this deck is I built it to play the early part of March 2010, the Edison part, and I built it to play the latter part of March 2010. If you guys didn't know, what's it called? The Shining Darkness, my bad. The Shining Darkness, when Edison was a thing, the early part, like around when the ban list first happened in March, the Shining Darkness was not released yet, and that's where you saw the Edison YCS New Jersey tournament take place, where guys like Billy Brake and Jeff Jones were playing their stuff, and then Flame Veils was also a good deck. But this deck, the good thing about this is I built it to where you can also play the older part of the format. So when X-Sabers got their support, where the Shining Darkness came out, and this deck even got a bit more support too with that set. So just keep that in mind if depending on which format you're building this deck for. To get started, the 3 Sirocco, and I'm sorry for the condition of that. I've just had this card this card in general for so long, like since my childhood, and you can definitely see the battle scars from it. Back when I used to not play with sleeves like you were when you were a child or when you were just newbie into the game. But anyways, the 3 Sirocco, he is a mini Cyber Dragon for the deck. He's not as good as Cyber Dragon, but for Blackwings, he definitely does the job. What he does is, if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can normal summon this guy from your hand. So it sucks that it's a normal summon, but still, it's a good card nonetheless. And then his other effect is you can target one Blackwing monster on the field, and then that Blackwing monster gains the rest of the other Blackwing monsters on the field's attack. That's even your opponent. So this card was a good side deck card in general. Like, I remember people used to play, and a lot of my friends that didn't even play Blackwings, would side at least 1 or 2 copies of this just for when they played the Blackwing matchup. This card would be a blowout in that matchup, which is insane. That's the reason why I'm playing 3 of this. Anyways, you could probably cut this guy down to 2, but because it is Blackwings, I'm playing 3. Also, there is a downside to that effect. The monster that gains all the attack of all the other Blackwings is the only monster that can declare an attack that turn. Next up, the 3 Bore of the Spear. This guy does piercing if it's not already told by his name. And then if you control a Blackwing monster, other named Bore of the Spear, you can special summon this guy from your hand. And I know a lot of new players, or a lot of players that I introduce into formats like this that don't know a whole lot about the older cards. You can still special summon Bore of the Spear if you control one. You just have to have another named Blackwing on the field with him. But if it's just Bore of the Spear, you can't just straight up special summon Bore of the Spear because of his effect plainly tells you so. But just to clear up some of the stuff that people's been telling or asking me about and stuff. Next up, the 3 Shura of the Blue Flame. What she does, and I do refer to her as a she. I know a few people referred to it as a he, especially back then when the card first came out. People were referring to it as a he, but I think it's a she. Shura, what she does is whenever she destroys a opponent's monster by battle, you can special summon a Blackwing monster with 1800 or less than 1800 attack, so less than her attack from the deck, and its effect is nullified, aka negated. And onto the 3 Kalut. It's your Battle Fader guy, the honest of the deck. You can drop this guy from your hand, and then the monster gains 1400 attack. It's really good at getting over things like Stardust Dragons, or if the opponent just has a board that's pretty much established or just close to established, you can break that board down pretty quickly because of a card like this. And don't just go swinging in with things and dropping Kalut because you can. I would save this card for the late game, or save it for a play that it's really needed on. Just because you have 3 of them doesn't mean you just go around throwing the card down. Next up, the 2 Blizzard. I'm probably going to bump this guy up to 3 later, but I don't know just yet. Whenever he's normal summoned, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Blackwing monster from your grave and then sync with it. At least that's what you would want to do, is synchro with it. And its effect is negated, which sucks. Onto probably the best Blackwing monster in the deck, Gale the Whirlwind. It was only at 1, or else you would definitely be playing 3 of this guy. This guy also has the same effect as Boar the Spear, where if you control a Blackwing monster other than Gale the Whirlwind, you can special summon this guy from your hand. And then he also has the second effect to where you can target an opponent or monster and then half that monster's attack. But the main reason why it's good is the level 3 tuner that can be special summoned. That's the good part of it. But a lot of other decks would tech this card as a one-of, just for the half thing and just for it being a tuner itself and sinking into it. Like a lot of if you were playing the Rescue Cat engine and like Doomcow Knight, you're most likely going to be playing this card as a one-of. A few of the Dandy Warrior decks were playing one of this card, and like even Flamevale decks were playing the one-of this card. So this card wasn't just good in Blackwings, it was good in general. The Vayu Emblem of Honor, this is the last tuner. I am super iffy about this card. I've never, even as a kid when this card released, everybody hyped it up. Everybody liked it at my locals and everybody that I knew except me. To this day, I still don't care. It's definitely a one-of, but to this day, I don't see why you should play more than one. What it does is it can't be used as a synchro material while on the board, which sucks. But its graveyard effect is pretty decent, where you can banish it from the graveyard and another targeted Blackwing monster that's a non-tuner. Banish those two, and then you synchro summon a Blackwing monster from your extra deck with the same level as the banished monsters. And then its effects are negated. So mainly what you would do is when this guy's in your, at least how I play it, is when this guy's in your graveyard and when they finally deal with your Armor Master, I would normally sink into these two, into the Silver Wind. And then next up, this is the no longer Blackwing monsters, the 2 DD Crows. This card was good up against every deck. In the Edison format of this, and then in the later part where X-Saber, like when the Shining Darkness got released, this card was still really good. I feel like this card definitely should be mained and not sideboarded, especially with it being a Wing Beast and in Blackwings. I mean, why not? The synergy is there. And then on to Plague Spreader Zombie. This is the guy that I'm thinking about cutting down to just playing 3 Blizzard. But I still like him because of his recursion and stuff. And he gets rid of the dead, or not dead. He can play around with like getting rid of cards out of your hand, returning to the top of the deck, and then using Whirlwind, summon a monster, and then using Whirlwind and stuff to shuffle the deck to get that dead card back into the deck at that point. So he does have some things other than just being a tuner. If you are playing the later version of this deck where the Shining Darkness was released, play Breeze the Zephyr. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a level 3 Blackwing tuner. And its effect is whenever it's added to your hand from a Blackwing card effect, you can auto special summon it. Again, it is a dead draw if you open it up, but if you're playing it as a one-of, chances are you're probably not going to open it up anyways. But it's just a suggestion. And then the one-of Dark Arm Dragon. There's still Blackwing decks today at the casual level that still play this guy as a one-of. And in this format, he was so freaking good. You could still top deck this card and actually win the game, or top deck this card and have the opponent scoop. It's not that way really anymore, which sucks. But back then, this guy was still a heavy hitter because Teledad was from 2009, 2008, that realm when this guy was thing. And then you got to think, this is only a year afterwards. This card was still super, super broken. Next up, the 2 Whirlwind, because it's only at 2 where you'd be playing 3. It's like a reinforcement of the army. Whenever a Blackwing monster is normal summon, you can search your deck for a monster with lower attack than the monster that you summon. So a lot of the common play would be normal summon Shura, and then search to hand your Gale the Whirlwind. Or your other common play would be normal summon Bora, search Gale. Or if you went second and you opened this up in like your Sirocco, you could play this, normal summon your Sirocco, and then search out a Bora. Or if you want to go for a synchro play, you can search out your Gale the Whirlwind. So you can see why this card was at 2 at this time. Onto your draw cards. The one-of cards for Back Feathers. Again, sorry for the condition of this card. Even though it is a common, it's not worth anything anyways. What it does is you can banish a Blackwing monster from your hand and draw 2 cards. You also can't special summon the turn that you do this, which sucks. And then the Allure of Darkness. You draw 2 cards and then banish a dark monster from your hand. So it's it's a better version of cards for Black Feathers. And then the Brain Control, pay 800, take control of opponent's monster. This was used for pushing for game, or of course taking control of something and synchro summoning with it. The wand, Book of Moon, good for stopping attacks in the battle phase, and also really good for interrupting an opponent's entire turn, especially if they're trying to go for a power play into synchro summon. You can book their tutor monster or something like that and just shut their turn off completely if played correctly. On to the stuff that stops the back row. The one, Heavy Storm, destroy all spell and traps. The one, MST, because it was only at 1. Target a spell or trap and then destroy it. And then the Cold Wave. Fun fact, if you guys didn't know this, this is my most hated card. If I was to ever make a ban, or not a ban list, if I was to ever to make a list of my top 10 most hated card, spoiler, this card is going to be number 1. I couldn't stand this card as a kid. Even when it's banned today, when I play these fun formats, I still can't stand having this thing activated against me. I'm so happy this card has been banned and has stayed banned for the most part of its existence. But in this format, sadly, it's at 1. And of course, you're going to play it because it's too good to not play. Onto the traps, the 3 Ick attacks. You tribute one of your Wing Beast monsters, and then you target 2 cards on the field, and then they go bye-bye. A good target for Icarus attack would be, of course, like your Bora or your Shora that's sitting still if you don't have the Kalut. Or the best target that I like to use for, if it's at that time, the Vayu. Or in some case, if DD Crow isn't doing that good, you can also use the DD Crow with it. But those are my targets with it. Onto the non-Wing Beast trap cards. The 2 Bottomless Trap Hole. I wish this card was good in Go format. I want to build a GOAT deck that's revolved around stuff like this. The problem is there's just really nothing good. Like, Bottomless Trap Hole as a side deck card in GOAT, I love. Just as a main deck, I can't do it. I've tried it plenty of times. It just always ends up being like a dead card, which sucks. But in this format, it's really good for obvious reasons. 1 Mirror Force and then the 1 TT. They're really your only board wipes at this time. A good tech card for this format, the 1 Starlight Road. It does have good synergy. It's stupid because you're negging off of it, but you can use Ick Attack, tribute your Wing Beast monster, and if you have something set, you can target these 2 and then chain this card to your Ick Attack. It would be very dumb to do that because, again, you're negging, but it's still an option. The main thing you use for, though, is if your opponent Mirror Forces you or TTs you or something like that. The 1 Solemn Judgment, for obvious reasons, just no. The 1 Trap Dust Shoot. Anytime this card is legal, I'm most likely going to be playing this card, except in GOAT format. There's a few GOAT decks that I'll play it in, but for the most part, I really won't play this card in GOAT. You guys have known that if you've seen my deck profiles. But it's way better, in my opinion, it's better in this format than it is in GOAT, considering that depending on the way that you open, if you somehow open up with the 1 of, which is unlikely, but again, if you do open up with the 1 of, like with the Whirlwind or something, your ending turn could end up with something like this, maybe even like a Bora right here or something, and then something set right here. So you can have a nasty ending board that's going to be hard with your opponent to deal with. I know nowadays, if this is your ending board, you're probably losing the game, but back then, if this is your ending board, you're pretty set. And then lastly, if this card is with the cards we mentioned, you're definitely set. The Royal Oppression. It's virtually Vanity's Emptiness on crack cocaine. That's my description for that card. If you guys think Vanity Emptiness is bad, God help. Royal Oppression, man. Onto the synchros. This isn't really a built synchro because you guys know that I use the same extra decks for all of my formats. So I'll just give you suggestions. For the level 5s, you could use Magical Android. The main guy, you definitely want to use those Catastor. You definitely want to play at least 1 or 2 Catastors. And then there's Sea Dragon Lord. You could play this guy if you're playing a more aggro build where you're just trying to get in as quickly as possible. But the only really level 5 here that you mainly need would be the Catastor. And, of course, the level 4 that you would need is Armory Arm, but I don't have any. I need to pick one up because they're not that expensive. But definitely play an Armory Arm for the Colossal Fighter loop, if you guys don't know what that is. I was going to say Breaker, the Magical Warrior. My gosh, I got to get Go format off my mind. Brionac. Definitely want to play Brionac. This card was probably the best synchro other than Stardust at the time. Just the fact that you can discard things like Vayu, or you could discard the DD Crows again if they're most likely dead. Then you can discard other dead cards and stuff like that, and then just return things back. This is pre-errata, by the way, so you can just keep sending things back with your heart's contempt. However cards you have in your hand that you don't want, you can get rid of him. It wasn't once per turn back then. Nextly, the Goyo Guardian again. This guy was not once per turn. Or not, what am I talking about? Not once per turn. This guy did not have the limitations on how you summon him. Back then, you could just summon him with just straight up a tuner and then a non-tuner. You don't have to have the earth crap like you do now. So this card was way better back then than what it is now. And then on to the Blackwing level 6s. The Armed Wing. You could play 1, 2, you could play 3. Play however many you want, however many fit your play style. I personally think all you really need is like 2. Then on to the level 7. The only really level 7 you need is Black Rose. Again, you could play 1, you could play 2, you could play 3. Play however many you want, play how you play. I'm one person that thinks 1 or 2 is good enough. The Blackwing Synchros, again, the level 7 Synchro. The Armor Master. This guy is the best Synchro, I think, for this deck. Or definitely with Blackwing in its name, other than, of course, the Brio. This guy is the guy that I definitely want to try and make as much as possible, though, especially with Gale and Shura plays like that. He can't be destroyed by battle, and he can place a wedge counter on something. And what that wedge counter does is you can remove it, and that makes that monster's attack 0. This card is really, really good, especially in this format. It's very hard to get rid of in this format. TT, Mirror Force, and a few other cards are like the only way of really getting rid of this card. Also, you take no battle damage, and your opponent takes no battle damage, or you take no battle damage involving battles with this card. On to the level 8s. Of course, you play the standard Stardust. You could play 1, 2, or 3. I feel like 1 or 2 would be the best, though. There's really no reason to play 3 of much cards. The Red Dragon, I feel like this card should only be played at 1, or maybe you could even cut it. Thought Ruler, again, you could play only 1, or maybe even cut it. And then Colossal Fighter. If you don't have the Armory Arm, like me, you probably shouldn't be playing this guy. But if you have the Armory Arm, there is the Colossal Fighter OTK, where if you'd have Colossal Fighter and Armory Arm and a monster that's strong enough to take the Armory Arm and kill this guy, you would equip the Armory Arm with their monster. And then what you would do is you would go into battle phase and then ram in. He would die. They would take the damage from Armory Arm's effect, and then his effect would bring himself back. And then you would continue swinging in. They would take damage from Armory Arm's effect. His effect would happen again. And you'd keep doing that over and over and over and over. With the rules we have now and the way this is ruled now, you can no longer do it. But we're playing back then with back then rules. So this loop is still possible if you're playing with the original rules. And then on to the level 9, the Mistworm. Oh, my bad. Silverwind. You definitely want to play at least 1 Silverwind for the Vayu. If you're not playing Vayu, I wouldn't recommend playing Silverwind. I mean, maybe you could still play 1, vice versa. If you're not playing Silverwind, there's really no point in playing Vayu. And now, the Mistworm. Again, this extra deck isn't complete by all means. It's nowhere near. This might be over the 15 card limit. It might be less. But this is just a recommendation. You guys do however you want to do on the extra deck. It's your deck and your build. Do however you want to do this on this. Anyways, I know this is a long video, and I highly doubt any of you guys have made it this far. But if you have made it this far, thank you. And this has been the Only Big Green Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm gone.